Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. After much technical difficulties, I'm here with my man Jerry Lyda. Jerry started out playing rock and roll cover bands in the early 80s and touring the Southeast club circuit. In the late 80s, he formed a country band called the Colts, again touring around the Southeast U.S., opening up shows for Kenny Chesney, Johnny Paycheck, that's a name I haven't heard in a while, John Anderson, Wade Hayes, and many others. Jerry actually owns and operates Music City, Asheville. They're the leading music store in Western North Carolina. So if you're in town, go check Jerry out in the store, and we'll talk more about that. And Jerry's currently a member of the Artimus Pyle Band, which is touring now. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because Artimus was the original drummer from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and we'll talk about that. Jerry, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, glad to do it, Craig, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hey, man, congratulations on that Artimus Pyle. That's a pretty cool gig. I was wondering how you wound up getting that.
Well, you know, it's like everything in this business. It's all about timing, and it just so happened that, Artimus lives here in Asheville where I do. And we happened to be at an event one night, a venue called the Orange Peel downtown, and I introduced myself. And once he found out that I owned a music store, that was it. Struck up the friendship, and here he came. And at that time, I was playing with a local rock cover band, just doing classic rock things, just having fun. You don't make much money doing that stuff, but we were having a good time. And I'd gotten a call from our drummer one night, and he said, "Man, I'm gonna have to bail on the gig." He had some issues that he needed to deal with, and I fully understood. The guy was a heck of a drummer, and he's a great guy. And within 20 minutes, for whatever reason, Artimus called me that evening. And I have no idea why he even called at this point. But he said, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, as of about 20 minutes ago, I'm looking for a drummer." He said, "When do I start?"
Holy crap, that's cool.
I said, "I don't think you want to play with this band, Artimus. We're doing covers, man. We're playing Speedwagon and Journey and Styx and Nugent." He said, "I'm in, man. Tell me when to start rehearsing." So that's when it started, and that's been probably 12 or 13 years ago. And Artimus and I have played on and off ever since that point, and including going out and doing, just full-on Skynyrd shows. But it always seemed to be sort of just piecemeal together. It was nothing ever really solid. It always sounded good, and it was always fun, but it wasn't as good as I knew it could be. So about 7.5 years ago, he called and he said, "Man, I've got some good paying jobs coming up, and I wonder if you might want to go do them with me." And I said, "Yeah, I definitely want to go do them." I said, "But let's do it right this time." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, let me wrap a band around you, Artimus. It's going to make you proud that when we walk out of a place, people are going to go, 'Holy smoke, what was that?'" And he said, "Sounds good, make it happen." So I made 2 phone calls, Brad Durden, to play keyboards and sing, because Brad had worked with me previously with Artimus. And then an old friend of mine, Scott Raines, from up here in Asheville. He's originally from Dothan, Alabama. Scott and I had played in a rock band together back in around 84, and really hadn't worked together since then. But I knew if I could get Scott on board that it would be a game changer, because he's a master at capturing every lick, every nuance, note for note, essentially. So I made the call. Within 5 minutes, he was on board, and I knew this was going to be a good thing.
And wait a minute, you said you hadn't played with him since 84?
Yeah, Scott Raines and I. We played together in 1984.
And so 30 years later, wait a minute, 30 plus years later, you're making a phone call.
Long time, that's right.
Wow, yeah. That is really cool.
Yeah. So now, we've been in touch over the years. We just haven't played in the same band together. Maybe we jammed together a time or two. I don't really remember, in some of the clubs around town. But yeah, he played in local club bands doing cover music. I played in local club bands, and I traveled some around the Southeast doing the country thing. And so we just really there wasn't an opportunity for us to work together so much. But thankfully, he took this gig, and it's made it a great band.
That's awesome. So, like, you and I are the same age, so you obviously grew up listening to Skynyrd. Was it really weird when Artimus called you and then he said, "Hey, I'm in to your local cover band." Was that like trippy or?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I go to rehearsal. I don't recall the guys. I don't even know at this point. I don't remember exactly whether they knew he was coming or not. I don't think so. I think we had just gotten together. We were rehearsing at my house, and I said to the fellas, "I've got a new drummer. It's Artimus Pyle." And they're like, "Okay, all right, okay." So that's kind of how everything got going. And I have to tell you, growing up in the 70s and certainly being exposed to Lynyrd Skynyrd, when I was, I guess the first time around, maybe 10 years old or something, I think my brother brought home a record or something like that. And, man, I was blown away. And it was one of those things that growing up, we listened to old country music. Mom and Dad did. And, after I got a little older, my sister, she listened to pop and the top 40 stuff, which never really moved me or anything. It just never kind of rattled my chain listening to that stuff. So I knew I wasn't into that. But the country stuff did. And then when I heard Lynyrd Skynyrd for the first time, it was kind of a blend of country and blues and maybe even some jazz in there. But that was it. I was hooked. I was blown away. And let's fast forward, 40 years, and then getting to play with one of the guys that I listened to in my bedroom on a daily basis. Pretty special, man.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you have to, like, I'm sure over the years you'd covered a load of Skynyrd songs. Did you have to, now that you're working with Artimus, because like Dave Fowler was showing me like some of the stuff that when you get under the hood and you really take the songs apart, it's not like really simple stuff. The lines are a little complicated. So did you have to unlearn and learn it a different way now that you're on stage with him?
Absolutely, because, we all grew up playing what we thought we heard.
Right.
Best we could. And I certainly had to go back and relearn everything. And to this day, I still go back and find things that I have missed. And, I'll never be the player that gets it absolutely 100% spot on. I'm just not that guy. It's just I have to put some of me into it. Scott Rains, our other guitar player, is a master of nailing every single note and nuance, as I said earlier. But with that said, Scott and I have been to Ed King's house on a couple of different occasions. And Ed would say, "All right, guys, show me how you're doing this." Like MCA, for example. Da, 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 da. Nope, that's wrong. And we're sitting there looking at each other going, "There's no way that's wrong. It's not that hard." But it was wrong. He showed us the right way to do it. It was just a position that we were using.
Okay.
And a note that we were leaving out. But, and Scott still goes back, as good as he is at covering this stuff. He still goes back and picks pieces out that he hadn't heard or, hadn't been doing. So it's a never-ending process, really, if you want to just get it absolutely 100% perfect. And it is very difficult to do because, in our case, we have two guitar players covering three parts. And so, it's going to be a little different, but it's very close to the original, the 70s Skynyrd.
Do you guys say, okay, I'm going to take this part, I'll be Gary Rossington or whoever, or you just kind of go by feel and, I like this, and you guys work closely enough, you could take what you like and he could take what he likes and it all works out in the end?
Kind of. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Scott will say, Jerry, put on the headphones, pan it to the right side, learn everything coming out of the right side speakers. And that's kind of one way we approach it. The other way we approach it is, especially in the beginning, Scott basically worked around me because he had nailed these songs for years. He had them down. And so I said, well, I know this. And, well, okay, well, then I'll do this. So it's not like that we really focus on playing one person's part or another. I mean, Scott obviously is our Strat guitar player. And so with that, he plays all of Ed and Steve's stuff, but he also does a lot of Alan stuff. And at the same time, I'll do some of Ed's stuff, like the slide that I play on Curtis Lowe.
That's a great song, man.
It's a great song.
It's a beautiful song.
And Ed did a masterful job on the slide guitar. I play it my own way. I don't sound anything like Ed, and I think he wishes I would use a Stratocaster. As a matter of fact, he told me, he said, you ought to be using a Strat on that. But but again, I feel like, I want to put my own flavor in it. And I feel like, too, if Ed were still playing with the band, he might have a different flavor on it right now. I don't know. But getting back to the original point, it's not that I say, well, I'm going to be Gary and you're going to be Ed, or you're going to be Steve and I'll be Alan, or whatever. It's whichever parts make sense. And again, with two guitar players covering three parts, you just kind of try to hit all the holes as best you can.
Sure. Where's Ed? Is he in northern Florida, or is Ed? Or is he in North Carolina?
Ed's in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, he is. Okay.
About 4.5 hours from us, and we're down there often. So he's been gracious enough to allow us into his home on a couple of different occasions, and we've had lunch and sat down and talked and played guitars, and he's got a collection of guitars. Now let me tell you,
I was going to say,
I've got a collection of guitars. All right, I've got a real collection of guitars. Ed's collection makes mine look weak. That guy has got some insane guitars, and he's very kind in the fact that, it's nothing for him to hand me a 56 Les Paul Gold Top and say, hey, man, have at it, or to play on the Stratocaster that he recorded Sweet Home Alabama with. It's pretty special. Also, the Pensa Sur that he did the 87 tribute tour with, it's there. Hey, check it out, man. See what you think. He's very gracious that way. So
that's really, what is it when you pick up, I know you're probably a vintage guy, so you probably got a bunch of old guitars.
Yeah, well, I like old and new. I do have a lot of old guitars. Nothing extremely spectacular, but just cool stuff. I've got some pretty spectacular acoustic guitars, which I rarely play. But, as far as the old vintage stuff, I've got a couple of old Les Paul Juniors. Matter of fact, I was in touch with Don Barnes from 38 Special over the past couple of weeks, trying to tempt him into buying one or two, and so he's thinking about it. He's looking for an early Christmas gift, so we'll see what happens with that. But I got some of those from the 50s, and I've got 3 or 4 like 60s Melody Makers and like a 60s Telly and some stuff like that, but nothing real spectacular. When I first got into the guitar shop business, I had some really cool stuff. I had 53 Telly come through. I had a 54 Strat that was pretty nice come through. I had some older Les Pauls, nothing from the 50s or the 60 or anything like that. But nevertheless, we had some really nice stuff come through. But at that point, I had to flip them and make money just to grow my business.
Course. Yeah.
So that stuff's gone, and I've kept some really neat pieces over the years, and it's a pretty nice collection. So.
Well, we'll talk about that in a few minutes because I want to hear more about that. Do you know, I'm sure you know Greg Martin?
Know Greg very well, yes.
Yeah, he plays that 58 Les Paul, man, and it's just, I interviewed him, and he doesn't use any effects. It's Les Paul, Marshall Plexi, that's it. I'm
the same way, man. Greg gets far better tone than I do. He's just got it in his hands.
Yeah, he's
that Plexi doesn't hurt either. But the 58, we've been touring with the Kentucky Headhunters. It's called the Brothers by Choice tour. And Greg, I've got to play that 58, and that's a spectacular guitar.
Is it?
Not all of those guitars, not all of the late 50s guitars were that great. Some of them were absolute crap, but not Greg's. That guitar is special. And I think I'm right about this. I think that guitar belonged to Ed King and Hank Williams Jr., if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, because he told me this. I don't know about Ed King, but he told me the story. It was Hank Williams Jr. guitar.
Pretty sure Ed owned that. I could be wrong about it, but I think he did. And that is a special guitar, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah,
I love that one.
He's a special guy, to be honest with you. Greg Martin's he's
fantastic.
unique, he's like one of these guys, man. just a special human being. You know, it's like you just want to give the guy a hug all the time because he's just so like purity and kindness dripping off him, man. You know,
he's salt of the earth, man. All those guys are, all the headhunters, man. They're dear friends, and they're just every single one of them are just super guys. We love being on tour with those guys.
That's cool.
We do this thing at the end of the set that both bands come out, whoever's headlining that night. You know, if it's us or if it's them. After the last song that we play, we both bands come together and we'll jam on like T for Texas or Crossroads or something like that.
That's cool.
And so I can stand right beside Greg and hear him rip it up, man. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun. That guy can lay it down.
Oh, he really can. Real good player, man.
Yes, he is.
What are the more interesting things you've learned about Skynyrd, if anything, through this, you know, experience in working with Artimus?
I don't know that I've learned that much that's all that interesting to me about Lynyrd Skynyrd, because the story rivals my childhood to a point that I almost feel like I was a part of the band, although those guys were a bit older than I am. But, you know, it's just similar upbringings, and we all did similar things, and putting our bands together and just trying to get a leg up. It's just, you know, they had the magic that the guys that I grew up playing with, we didn't have it. It's simple as that, you know. But there's nothing really that surprising about Lynyrd Skynyrd that I've learned, other than, you know, they're just basically any other rock band. They played hard, they partied hard, and that's kind of it, you know.
Interesting. You working on anything now that you're excited about outside of the Artimus Pyle gig, which I know you're pumped up?
Not personally, no. I focus all my musical energy for the most part on the Artimus Pyle Band, although I do have a local band, and, you know, we do some corporate and private stuff doing bluegrass and old country and stuff like that, and that keeps me going certainly through the winter months. But APB is my focus, and in fact, we're writing material right now. You know, I'm sure you've heard about the movie that Artimus was involved in.
No, man, I didn't hear that. What's...
Yeah, they were doing a movie about the plane crash.
Oh, wow.
And, the movie has been filmed, and it's on a shelf in Hollywood, and it's locked down by a lawsuit right now. The Skynyrd camp laid a lawsuit down due to some documents that were signed back in the late 80s that said that none of the members would ever essentially exploit the plane crash for monetary gain. And so, unfortunately, on the shelf now, but the movie is called, I have co-written a song with Wayne's, the title track, Street Survivors, and we're just waiting on the band to come in and write the music at this point. We'll all be rights on at this point. Warren and I are the only ones that have written anything. So I'm pretty excited about that.
You said at this point, and then I didn't hear. So who and you have written?
Warren Haynes and myself.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, Warren and I grew up in the same town here. We've been knowing each other since probably 13 or 14 years old, and you know, I don't have to tell you what that guy accomplished.
Oh my God, I don't even know how he. I mean, how the hell does he tour? I mean, he's like the James Brown of rock and roll, man. I mean, that dude is just always on.
And he's never weak either, man. Anytime I see him, he is absolutely spectacular. He is I don't know that he's a one of a kind, but Lord have mercy, he's one of the best.
Oh,
and I'm proud to know the man. Not only is he a hell of a musician, he's a hell of a man.
You know what? I'm amazed that I've seen Mule 4 or maybe 5 times. I saw him up in New York City at the on Broadway over there. I can't think of the theater now, but the Beacon. They do that, the end of the year thing. I saw him once there, and I saw him 3 or 4 times here in Tampa. And even to this day, and the first time I saw him was probably 12, 13 years ago, he still hangs out back after playing a 3-hour show. He still hangs around out back talking to people. I mean, that's like says a lot about somebody.
Yeah, he's one of the most accommodating men I've ever known. He's just he's so generous, and I'm proud to call him a friend. I'll tell you that.
That's nice, man. And that's a great project, man. I hope that thing comes to light with the movies.
Well, I do too. You never know what's going to happen. I mean,
Sure.
it either happens or it doesn't. If it doesn't, we still got the song in the can, and we'll put it on our CD. Hopefully, we'll have something out by next summer. Our intent is, while we're off this winter, to go ahead and go in and cut some tracks and maybe have something ready to go by spring when we start touring again.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. Of course, you're always in the back of your mind if it comes to fruition, and I get it. But it's a nice project, man. Real cool.
Yeah. We're looking forward to that. So.
I know you're originally from Asheville. We talked about this when we first chatted about how it's changed dramatically. What was your childhood like running around up there?
Fantastic. Couldn't have been better, man. I had great parents. Worked hard. I just like any other normal kid, I guess. And it was a great place to grow up. Now it's kind of gotten a little overcrowded, and I don't know. I guess it's how you perceive things. Some of the people that moved here doesn't seem to be the friendliest people on the planet.
Yeah, that's really weird. Because it's a
when I grew up
place.
here, it was a lot of friendly people, man, just hardworking people, and we did things like everybody else. We played baseball and basketball and football, and just after you get to a point, certainly myself, I got to a point to where I was like, well, look, I'm not going to be a pro athlete, so why am I going to go out here and beat myself up? Why don't I just lock in and start playing guitar? And thank God I did that. It's allowed me to make a decent living,
Cool. That's awesome, man. Has at least the growth of this city benefited you and your business?
It has not.
Really?
As a matter of fact, if anything, I think it's been a detriment on the business, and I'll explain that. A lot of people, they move here in droves, and a lot of musicians move here with the concept that this is a big music town. Well, there might be 50 places to play tonight if you don't mind to play for free. And apparently musicians don't mind to work for free. Well, my store, we sell high-end stuff. We carry Gibsons and Marshalls and Orange and Mesa Boogie and all this cool gear. Well, if you're working for free, it's hard to come in and buy a Marshall half stack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So,
I mean, you don't sell it for free.
Exactly. So these guys that are moving here are, they're really I guess just so many people trying to play now. It's making it to where, I guess you have to work for nothing just to get to play. And so it has not helped my business at all. You would think it would, but I think with just the lack of good paying jobs that it's just not allowing them to come and buy the gear that they need to really sound good. So I don't know,
Have you shifted a lot of your sales online, or are you in that process?
We do quite a bit online. There's a site called Reverb.com we sell a lot of stuff on, and it's dedicated to musical instruments and musicians, and I like that site a lot. It's extremely well run, and the guys that are on there, most of them are very serious about buying gear, so it's not like eBay. We've got a lot of guys just going on there to see if they can get something for nothing. These guys mostly, for the most part, are very serious about the gear, and so we like that side a whole lot. But beyond that, we just do mostly walk-in.
Yeah, Reverb, I don't know if you know this, but they changed a while back. They originally set up to be like the eBay of musical instruments without all the nonsense of eBay, and they've done a great job. But they started a while back catering to the small to medium shops around the country and giving you guys an outlet. And I don't know if you know this, they do over $400 million in revenue a year.
Oh, yeah.
And
they've got quite an operation, man.
And Rick Nielsen is one of their investors from Cheap Trick.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
It's up in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's based out of Chicago. Chicago Music Exchange has it.
Yes, sir.
And the guy that runs that's a brilliant guy, so it doesn't surprise me that Rick would be involved with that. I wish I had been.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize they were that big. I just happened to read an article. I get like, I'm sure you get, I think it's called Music Trades magazine or something like that.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
just read that last week. I was like, holy, I had no idea they were that big, really, but 400 million in annual
it's a
revenue.
company, man. They're kicking butt.
They are. And you know what? And I agree with you, because if I have to sell anything, that's where I put it. If I have to sell a guitar, I put it on there, and people, you know, it's not like eBay. I mean, you may get some lowball offers, but you'll get people that know what they're doing about the guitars.
Well, back in the day, man, eBay was a great source for buying cool gear, you know, when it was actually an auction site. And now it's just a series of stores. You've got dealers on there trying to unload gear, and a lot of them will unload it at $100 above cost. You know, to me, if I invest $3,000 in a guitar, I don't really want to just sell it and make $100 on it.
Yeah, that's not
But
good.
there's a lot of guys that do, and it cheapens the brands, and it really just makes it difficult for everybody to make money. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you just have to, if you're going to play the game, you just got to get in there and fight. So
Yeah, very true.
we still do it.
What's your, I know you got a big collection, so let's talk about gear a little bit. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other, 2 to 4 guitars would round out your top, 3 to 5?
Well, I only take 2 guitars on the road, and my main guitar is a 2001. It's a Les Paul Standard. It's at that time they called them a Standard Plus because it's got a nicely flamed top, and it's a guitar that a guy traded in several years ago here at the shop. And after he traded it in, I had done some work on it previously, and he wanted some EMG pickups in there. So he brought it back. He wanted to trade it to me, maybe a year later or whatever. So I said, yeah, I'd love to have it. So I sit there, and I'm playing it. And, it's one of those that you just play it, and all of a sudden you're just like, this is the one for me. So I immediately took it back to the bench. I took the EMGs out of it, got rid of those things, put the original Gibson pickups back in, which was a 490 and a 498. And now I replaced the 498 with a Burstbucker Pro 2, I believe, is what's in there. And so that's my main guitar. And the other guitar I keep with me is just a Gibson SG Standard. That's pretty cool. It's got push-pulls and stuff, but I never play it. If you're used to playing, now Gary Rosenson is a master of switching from a Les Paul to an SG, and so was like Dwayne Allman. A lot of guys do it.
Yeah.
It's weird to me because where the neck joins the body on an SG versus a Les Paul, when you're looking down at it, the position's a little different.
It's weird.
And I am not that sharp of a player to where I can just instantly go, oh, well, this is easy. This is going to be my E position or whatever. I'm not that guy. I remember things from sight, and so every now and then I get myself in trouble if I have to pick up the SG.
Well, plus the SG, I have an SG and I love it, but it is weird because the neck is heavier than the body, sort of.
That can be the case. Mine, not so much, thank God. But that when a neck is top heavy like that, you find yourself having to hold it up. That's a whole nother distraction.
Yeah.
And man, it doesn't take me much to get distracted to begin with. So, anyhow, I just pray that my Les Paul never fails and I don't have to use the SG. But I had to use it this summer in Florida for one song.
And it was all right. You made it.
Yes, I made it.
So
it's different.
Yeah, it is a different animal. So you took out the 498. Those are the hottest standard, Gibson pickups, I think. Correct?
No, they make some more. There's the 500 series that initially came out in the classics. I believe those are a little bit hotter. And I think, I'm not going to swear to anything because someone will go back and review it and say, well, that guy's a dumbass.
They're going to hey, let me newsflash. They're going to say it anyway. It doesn't matter.
Not sure.
Yeah, they'll find something.
But then they also have the Dirty Fingers pickups too, and those things are screaming hot.
Right.
So, but the 490 and the 498 is a great combination.
Yeah.
They're real warm and round sounding pickups, So if you dial back your gain a bit, then it doesn't get too hot.
No, I have them right there in that Tobacco Burst Classic. I love them.
Yeah, classics are great guitars.
Yeah, and I'm not a big guy, so I don't have really big hands, and that the neck just fits me perfect. I love
Yeah.
it. Really like it.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, so you got your 2001 Standard Plus and your SG Standard. Very cool. Do you have any guitars that like have cool or interesting stories behind how you got them?
Not particularly. Not really. One cool piece I got. I mean, most of the stuff I got just came through the store. You know, I'd buy it off of someone, or take it in on trade. I guess one cool thing is I had a friend of mine has a friend down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I wanted an AR-15 rifle. So he said, man, this guy builds some fine weapons. I said, all right, I'll get him to build me some. So I had him to build me 5 AR-15 rifles. Mm-hmm. And I went down to get them. And while I'm there, he said, man, I want you to play this guitar my brother built. I was like, all right, I'll play it. Whatever. You know, I hear it all the time. You look at the guitar I built. And sometimes they're okay. And most of the time they're just like, oh, God, you know, I appreciate the effort, but maybe he needs to go back to the drawing board. Not in this case. I sat there and started playing that guitar. And I was like, holy smoke, this thing plays like a dream. So long story short, a guy named Sammy Heath down out of Asheville built me a Telecaster, custom-built Telecaster to my specifications. And I thought, you know, what the heck? I'll get him to call it the Jerry Lyda model.
There you go.
Probably be my only opportunity to ever have my name on a guitar.
Take it.
So there it is. But it turned out to be a very, very nice guitar.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So that was a pleasant surprise. You weren't expecting that when you picked it up.
No, not at all.
That's awesome, man. Who are your biggest influences, guitar-wise?
You know what? Surprisingly, pretty much all of my influence were local players. And I guess because I didn't buy many records when I was a kid, you know, we didn't get an allowance or anything like that. And so I had to basically depend on my older brother to go to the store and bring home a record that I'd listen to or something like that. And like I say, my sister was into top 40 and pop dance music. I wasn't interested in that at all. You know, the blues guys and all that, you know, everybody says Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King, and that's true. Those guys kind of wrote the book on badass guitar. And but I was influenced by local players, and some of those guys were bluegrass players. I used to get lessons from a guy named Dale McCoy that was a fine bluegrass player, and a Chet Atkins style player. He was just amazing, one of the cleanest guitar players I've ever heard. And there was a guy named Bruce McTaggart that taught me as well, and Bruce was an amazing blues player and rock player. Of course, Warren Haynes grew up here in town, and so I got to hear Warren. And a fellow named Andy Hunter was one of the better players as far as just knowing how to put nice things within a song. He knows how to let a song breathe, and he could put beautiful fills in there, and I've never heard anyone get tone like Andy does. And I still play with Andy sometimes. Nice. So it was mostly local players. Now, those guys were all influenced by the likes of Freddie and Albert and BB and some of those players. So indirectly, I was influenced by those players, but it was through the local players. Those are the guys who really put me in the place that I'm at right now.
I think that's really unique and very cool because most people don't have an opportunity to, you know, play so closely with people that are so, you know, have such an impact on their playing. That's really great, man.
Well, you know what it was is there was one particular music store in town, and it's where all the musicians hung out, including me, you know, whether I would be driven there by my parents for my lesson or whatever, or as I got my driver's license at 16, you know, I didn't have anything else to do. I'd just drive to the music store and hang out and see who was hanging out down there. And so you'd hear the guys play, and you pick up stuff from them. And unfortunately, with internet and stuff like that and the likes of Guitar Center, we don't see as much of that going on in the independent stores anymore. You know, you go to a Guitar Center, yeah, you got a bunch of guys in there playing, but they've got crap cranked up and they're just wanking away on it. And no one's really swapping licks and swapping ideas like we used to back in the day, so to speak. At least that's what I see.
No, that's 100% accurate. It's not a community. It's more like a self-serving, but I think that all that always comes from the top, to be honest with you. You run a store and you run it the way you want to run it, right? And
exactly. Absolutely.
So, it's just big business, big.
Yeah. And
maybe that's why they're, a hair away from being out of business. Who knows? Works
for me.
I hear that, man.
Music, to be good at music, there's a bit of soul required, and I think it starts at guitar shops. Gosh, like I say, the guitar shop that I used to visit frequently when I was a kid, there was just something about it. The guys back behind the counter, they could play. They knew what they were doing. Andy Hunter worked there, and he was amazing. Bruce McTaggart was there. Matt Sluter hung out down there. All the best players, and these guys were killer. Guys like Mike Barnes from up here. Mike is a monster player. He's one of Haynes' best friends. And Matt Sluter, I saw those guys when I was 14 years old. They were about 2 years older than me. And they were playing Dixie Drag stuff and nailing. These guys were 16 and 17, nailing the Dixie Dregs and guys like that. And man, I just don't see much of that anymore. I think I have to attribute some of their abilities to the fact that they could hang out in a killer music store and learn from the older guys that were coming in and out. So I miss that. I wish it were still a thing, and I think a lot of the newer players, which some of these kids that are out there now can really rip it up. They shred, but they can't bend a note and make it say a damn thing. It's a series of patterns and speed, and there's just no real soul in what they're doing.
Sure, I hear you,
man. Do you not true for all of them, but a lot of them.
No, a lot of them for sure, man. Do you know a session player in Nashville, real good player named Mike Durham?
Doesn't ring a bell.
He told me a very similar story. Like, he's a really excellent player, but he was telling me how he grew up, and I'm trying to think where he grew up. I don't know where, somewhere in the South, I believe, but same thing. He went to a local store, and the owner was such a big influence in his life, allowing him to develop as a player. And he had all the kids there, and they'd play jam sessions together. And it was a very similar thing. And I've heard that several times from a lot of musicians.
Yeah. The stores back in the day, in my opinion, the stores had a lot to do with the quality of the players.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Ever sell a guitar you wish you could get back?
No.
That's good, man.
I've even the ones I mentioned earlier, the 54 Strat and the 53 Telly. The only reason I'd want them back is for investment purposes, because quite honestly, they weren't that great at guitars. They were okay, but the newer stuff to me is better.
Sure.
And so that would be the only reason I would want those back. I sold one guitar one time, and it was a kid that used to come to my shop and take lessons. And it was a Stratocaster. It was called a Strat. I think it was called a Strat Plus. So I've got the Les Paul Standard Plus, and I think this was called a Strat Plus. I bought it brand new in 1988 from Rhythm City in Atlanta, Georgia. Beautiful guitar. Played it for a long time and just decided, man, I don't need this thing anymore. I'm going to sell it. So when I sold it to the kid, I said, look, if you ever decide to get rid of this, just check with me first in case I want it back. And sure enough, several years later, he walked it in here. He said, you want to buy it back? And I said, absolutely. And I gave him the money. And
that's cool, man.
Yeah, so that's the only one, man. Anything else I've sold, I'm glad to see it go.
That's very cool. Hey, so talk about your store a little bit. You said you guys specialize in like high-end stuff?
Yeah, we keep a lot of high-end gear in the fact that we have Gibson guitars. I got a lot of Gibson stuff, Epiphone stuff in here. We do Jacksons, and we're a Music Man dealer, pretty much a dealer for ESP, Schecter, Dean, all that stuff. None of which is really selling well right now. But in amps, we do Mesa Boogie, we do Orange, we do Marshall, Vox, I forget what else. We got Roland and that sort of thing. So, it kind of caters to the players a little more than some other stores. A lot of stores, they say, well, if we cater to the kids, the beginners, we can make a lot of money because that's who's spending money, and that's it. But you'll think I'm crazy, but I really didn't get into the business to make a pile of money. I wanted to make a living, but I wanted to have a super cool store and have cool people coming in and buying the gear, And so I wound up carrying all this expensive stuff.
How long you had the store?
This is my 28th year.
Man, that's pretty impressive.
It's been a good living, man. It's provided my family a comfortable living, and
wow, that's
it's been
fantastic.
a lot of fun. I always enjoy getting up, even now. The music store business is nothing like it used to be.
Sure,
it's you're having to work 2 or 3 times as hard to make half the money, but I still enjoy coming in every day and checking out all the gear, and it still excites me to see someone come in and buy a nice piece of gear from us and to see them excited. So for now, I still enjoy doing it.
That's cool, man. How come you think those other, like you mentioned, I think Dean, Schecter, why aren't they selling as much?
I wish I knew. It's like those things tend to trend. And I know for a while we were selling Schecter guitars as fast as we could get them through the door. They were building a fine product. They still do. But then it started trending toward ESP and Dean and then to Jackson. And I don't even know what's hot now. It's hard to keep up with it. But, we still get some of the old diehard guys that love to come in and buy the Jackson stuff. ESP kind of died for us. It's really right now, it's just all over the map.
Well, there's so many also like boutique guitar builders now. And
yeah. And a lot of guys are switching to those too. And that's cool, because some of these guys, these independent builders, are building some incredible guitars.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, you mentioned Pensasur before. I mean, John Sears builds wonderful products. You can't go wrong with a Suhr guitar. But it's interesting because I'm wondering if resale has anything to do with that, because it's so easy to put a Gibson or a Fender on the market and get it sold. I don't own those other guitars, but I wonder if that impacts any of the decision making.
I'm sure it does to some extent, and that's always kind of been my thing too. Is as much as I can appreciate some of the custom builders and what they're doing, if they build a nice guitar and they price it at $3,500, you got to ask yourself, well, do I want to buy that, or do I want to buy the Gibson that when I get ready to resell it, I'm going to get a lot more money out of it because of the name.
100%.
It's kind of that fact, but it is a fact. That's how it works, And to me, I've always been a fan of Gibsons. I got my first Gibson Les Paul off one of my instructors when I was 15 years old, and I've still got it. It's a 73 Standard.
Wow.
I've just
How does that
always
play?
loved those guitars. How does it play?
Yeah.
It plays like a dream.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
And it stays at home, and I never see it because I'm afraid I'll tear it up.
I can't blame you.
But a very cool guitar, and I've just always been fascinated by the Les Pauls, even to this day, and as wacky as that company is. And I can tell you, having been a dealer for 15 years, that is one screwed up company. And look, if they hear that, I'm fine with it. I don't care. They need some restructuring at that company. But the one thing that you cannot take away from them is that they still build a fantastic guitar. The people in that factory, I've been through the factory many times, both custom shop and the USA plant. And I'll tell you what, those men and women in that shop, in both those shops, are very passionate about what they do. So regardless of the screwiness that goes on in the offices, the men and women in the factories are churning out some bad-ass guitars. Don't let anybody kid you.
That's awesome. And just so you know, like, I've interviewed 2 or 3 retailers, and everybody says the same exact thing. So it's not you're not a little secret. You're not like a minority viewpoint on this by a long shot.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. You've been helping people buy and sell guitars for nearly 30 years. What are some of the biggest mistakes guitar players make when they're buying guitars?
Oh, man. Probably being sold on a brand, which, we just talked about that, that you have to decide if you want to buy a brand name or if you just want to buy a good guitar. I don't want to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I kind of am, you know. I'll see guys that'll walk over a G&L to buy a bad Fender when the G&L is a far better guitar in a lot of cases. So I think that's probably it as far as mistakes that are made when you're buying a guitar, is that you're sold on a brand instead of a quality guitar. Jack Pearson, I'm sure you know who Jack is.
Yeah,
He's one of the amazing guitar players on the planet. Jack plays $100 Squier Stratocasters.
You know, somebody told me that.
That's a fact. Jack's a dear friend, and I'll tell you right now, he plays them. And he'll go and he'll buy like 3 at a time. And quite honestly, if you get a Squier Stratocaster, and if it's set up right, you just can't hardly beat the way they play. It just is what it is. But, you know, some guys look at that and go, I don't want to buy a Squier. I want to get a USA-made Strat. It's not necessary.
So being sold on a brand over having brand blindness as opposed to just picking a good guitar that feels right and
exactly
good value.
You know,
interesting.
Ultimately, if you could put a sock over the headstock of every guitar in the shop and have the player come in and say, well, just play until you find the one you like, chances are they may not pick the brand that they came in to buy. You know,
that's a very interesting. Talk about those G&Ls for a minute, because I've heard that, like, for the most part, Fender's really overall pretty consistent in their products.
Yes, they are.
But where does G&L beat them?
In my opinion, just, you know, for what I like, the G&L, the USA made stuff, is just superior in the neck joints. Everything about the guitar to me feels better. The necks feel better. They feel more custom built, more played in, if you will. But, you know, it's not a knock on Fender. I mean, God knows, you know, Fender makes a fine guitar.
Sure.
And I've got Fenders, and I've got a Stratocaster that I use on a particular job here in town. And it's a Mexican-made Stratocaster. So, you know, I think that's just, to me, for what I like. I like the finishes on the G&Ls. I like the quality control that goes into the G&L guitars. Everything from the neck joints down to the hardware they use. It's better for me. I'm not saying that everybody should jump out and buy a G&L over a Fender, but for what I like, what my hands like, what my eyes see, and what my ears hear, G&L would be the better choice.
You know, I've often looked at getting a G&L. The problem that stops me in my tracks is you go on the website.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you ever see Gordon Ramsay, the chef, and the first thing he does when, you know that show with a guy from England?
No, I don't watch him. He's loud. I can't take that argument.
He is loud. But you know, the first thing he tells everybody is when he looks at their menu, he says something like, man, you got 100 things on your menu. You got to cut it back. I go to the G&L website, and I'm not a genius, but I'm a reasonably bright guy. I'm overwhelmed with options, and I'm like, you know, after 10 minutes, I'm like, man, screw it. I just can't figure this out.
I'll tell you how that happened, Craig, is, you know, G&L back through the, I'm still technically a dealer for G&L, although I don't stock them because they're incredibly hard to sell. It's sad, but for years, when I was doing the country thing, I played exclusively G&L guitars. I was turned on to him by a guy named John Jorgensen. He was with a band called the Desert Rose Band, and John's an amazing player. And although I didn't know John, I was amazed by his ability. And he played G&L guitars, and his tone and the whole thing with his ability, his tone, the whole package and the look of those guitars. So that's what I want to play. So I started playing G&Ls, and I'm thrilled that I did. I can't imagine going back and doing it any other way. But at that time, you know, they were doing, in my opinion, they were doing all the right things, but it was a very difficult guitar to sell. And I guess what they've done is just said, hey, look, you know what? If we're not going to be able to compete with Fender, let's just have a custom shop where the customer can call up and get anything he wants. He can determine the color, the neck radius, the neck width, the whole package. So to me, I guess that's the only thing I can think of if they're going that route. But I'm with you, man. Too many choices.
Yeah, I mean, Fender's got a lot of choices, but they're basically kind of, sort of similar. It's a American standard, a standard professional, and elite. It's just a little twist on the same thing, but I don't understand the ones, and it's unfortunate because
Yeah, I think a lot of companies get themselves in that boat. Dean Guitars was another one, being a dealer for guitars. My God, what do you stock? I mean, you've got 150 models literally to choose from. Each one of those has 6 or 8 different colors and this option and that option. I mean, how many freaking people are there out there to buy these guitars? And I think now that all the companies are realizing that we've built too many guitars. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, it's too many options. It's confusing. And when it boils down to it, most players want the same things. You can always sell a natural or a sunburst guitar, or a black guitar. And a Les Paul's a Les Paul, Strat's a Strat. Those are always going to outsell everything else out there on the market. So I don't know, too many choices. I think you confuse people.
Yeah, I agree with you. You'd think also somebody would say, hey, listen, instead of being everything to everybody, let's just specialize in these 3 things and just really kick ass at these 2 or 3 things.
I agree with that 110%, man. And I wish Gibson would get that.
Yes.
I wish that company, before it sinks, I wish they would go, hey, man, instead of us making all these wild guitars with auto tuners,
yeah,
and
that's
stuff,
what I was thinking when you said that.
And putting this nut and that nut on there and push pulls and all that. For God's sake, man, dance for the one that brought you.
Right.
Make a Les Paul, make an SG, make the Flying V. People still love those things.
Sure.
Make the Explorer, and let's call it a day. Do a few hollow bodies, a 335, but we don't need all these wild guitars out there because nobody's really buying them.
Yeah.
And same with Fender. For God's sake, Fender's got so many SKUs. It's incredible. I don't even know how they keep up with them,
Well, every year they just got to come out with a new version of the American standard so that now it's the elite, it's like, come on, guys.
One less coat of lacquer and let's call it an American Standard Limited or something like that. And you're like, hey, yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
But, man, you know what? Maybe we're just getting old, Greg. I don't know. Maybe it's just us. Maybe they've got a finger on the pulse of things.
We're not getting old.
I don't see.
I agree with you, though, man. What's the most undervalued guitar or brand of guitar that, like, a sleeper as a dealer?
Man, Epiphone makes some great stuff.
Interesting.
They make some really great stuff. Their acoustics, you get into for, $200 and $300. Some of them kind of blow your mind.
The acoustics.
We've actually had some that we sell, DR100, I believe is the model, that we'll get in. We sell them for $119. And occasionally, I don't know how it happens, but occasionally you'll get one in that for whatever reason, I guess all the grains in the wood line up or whatever, they just sound like cannons. So, Epiphone's definitely one that I would look at if I were a beginner.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I have nothing to gain by saying this because I'm not a dealer for Fender. But some of the Squire, I think they call them classic vibes or vintage vibes or
classic
something like
vibes, yeah.
For God's sake, man, what a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fender might be shooting themselves in the foot with their Mexican-made stuff and these Squire classic vibes or whatever. They're so good, you have to ask yourself, well, why would I spend $1,500 when I can get this monster for $300?
Well, the other weird thing is they've got a lot of really cool colors, like the vintage color, like kind of like eggshell blue and Fiesta red. They only make them in the Squires, and people want those, and you could either get them in the Squire or the custom.
Yeah.
So it's like, go figure that, man. I don't understand why.
And the customs are out of control, man. Those things, what are they, $4,000 plus now?
Something like that, man.
I used to be a Fender custom shop dealer, and they were so expensive that it was just incredibly difficult to sell. We did manage to sell some, but they weren't flying off the shelves.
No, they're not going to. $4,000's a lot of money, and
That's a lot of money.
Guy wants to get his or her guitar for $4,000. He doesn't want to happen to get one that's if you get it off the shelf, it doesn't feel like a custom,
Yeah.
So how about overrated guitar? What's the guitar that gets returned most often?
We don't really get any returns on guitars. The guys pick them out and they're satisfied with them. Overrated guitars.
If you could say without getting shut, without
anything over $1,200. I mean, seriously, do you really need it? Although I have a closet full of them, do you really need it?
I hear you.
I mean, shoot, gosh, Gibson's making their those little faded studios, that they came out with, like the tribute series and stuff like that. Those guitars were amazing, absolutely amazing. You could buy them. Brand new American-made instrument for $899.
Yeah.
Why spend $3,000 on one? Yeah. So, I don't know. I kind of have a different perception of these things, maybe, I guess, than a lot of players. I don't see the point in spending that kind of money on a guitar. Because look, at the end of the day, the tone, you're not. It's like golf. I don't know if you play golf.
I do not.
I try to play golf. And I bought myself a low-end set of Callaway clubs, thinking, well, it can't hurt to have them. Well, guess what? It doesn't help to have them either. I still suck at golf. So the bottom line is, if you've got tone in your hands, you'll get tone out of a $100 guitar.
Right.
You don't have to buy a $3,500 guitar. It's not necessarily going to sound and play better. If my advice to anybody that's just starting would just, like I said, go into the store and start playing them until you find the one that feels right and pull the trigger on it. You'll learn to get the tone out of that guitar. I don't care if it's a Squier Strat or if it's an Epiphone Les Paul. You'll learn to pull tone out of that guitar.
Sure.
In time. So get the one that feels good to you, man.
Yeah, that makes sense. Total sense. Hey, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be doing instead? It's kind of a tough question.
No, not really. I mean, I'm sure at some point it all comes to an end. I like fooling with real estate, man. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I'll buy cool cars every now and then. That's kind of fun. Collect pinball machines too. So I'm all about doing those things, man. Having a good time. Hang on one second. I could find plenty of things to keep me occupied, man. I love to go bass fishing. That's a great time to me.
Oh, yeah, man. I love bass fishing. It's nice.
And,
so relaxing, man. It's really, you got a lot of lakes up there in your area, I'm sure, right?
No, not really. I have
to
drive about an hour and a half to get to the closest lake.
Where do you go, east or west?
You can go in either direction. South Carolina's got some great lakes. I can drive about an hour and 15 minutes east of here. And Lake James is pretty decent. Not the greatest for fishing, but the better fishing lakes are down around South Carolina, Lake Murray, down around Columbia and stuff like that. But I tell you what, I've got a buddy of mine here that's got a huge farm pond. It's about a 2-acre farm pond.
Oh, wow.
Love to go out there, man. I'll go out there often by myself in the evenings and just sit there and fish, man, and reel in bass. And I'll tell you what, that's a great time.
Yeah.
It's very relaxing.
It is relaxing. I love bass fishing. I just fire up a cigar, and it's just like very chilled out, and there's nothing there. It's very there's nothing there, so it's just you're forced to relax, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're probably a Type A business owner. I'm a Type A business owner, so the only way we can sort of relax sometimes is if we're forced, and definitely bass fishing is one of those things, man.
That's a good one. And I love to play golf. Suck. Boy, I suck. But I love to play.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
Work hard.
Mom? Most important thing Mom taught you?
Be good to people.
What's your superpower, Jerry?
I don't have one.
No, everybody's got one, man.
No, not me.
I think
I'm just a normal dude, man. I'd have to let someone else answer that question, Craig.
I hear you.
Even if I thought I had one.
You wouldn't say it. All right. That's fair enough, man. Biggest business or personal win so far?
I don't know, man. I don't really look at personal win or gain or anything like that. I just I've managed to do what I've loved all my life, and whatever it is, and it's afforded me a decent living, man, and to me that's a win.
I would agree with that 100%, man. 100%. What's a favorite part of what you do?
Shoot, most of it, I'm surrounded by good people. I'm surrounded by killer gear, good music. I mean, it's not much about it that's not fun. So, other than paying the bills, beyond that, everything's pretty good.
That's awesome, man. So then there's really no least favorite part?
Not necessarily. I mean, tax time, all that paperwork's kind of a drag. But you have to look at it and say, well, it is work. It's fun, but it is work. And so that's the work part of it right there. The rest of it's fun.
Man, if that's your least favorite part, everything's working right for you, man. I'm happy to hear that. Seriously, man, really. This is a good question. What's the toughest decision you've ever had to make or the hardest thing you've ever had to do?
Man, Craig, you know what? I'm a lucky guy. I've never really had to make tough decisions. I've never had to do anything that I didn't want to do.
That's really awesome, man.
Joy. I'm just a lucky guy, man. It's just as simple as that.
That's wonderful, man. Last question. What's your definition of happiness, Jerry?
Shoot, man, I'm happy. I've got a great family. I came from a great family. I have a wife, and my daughter is just an amazing human being, and that probably makes me more than happier than anything I do.
Sure,
is be able to watch my daughter do her thing. She's grown now, but I'll tell you what, she's everything to me.
That's nice, man. How long you all been married? Or together?
My wife and I have been together for 32 years.
That's awesome, man.
Married 27, yeah.
Congratulations. That's
crazy.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's me or her. It might be her.
Well, I've been together with my wife 25, and what people don't realize is, and we actually, which it sounds like we have a good thing going. I'm really very lucky. We still have fun. We still like each other. We have a lot of fun, as a matter of fact. And there's a lot of work involved in that, and people don't really, It
is absolutely a job, man. Yeah. And especially if you're going to be a musician and you're going to travel with, a band like I do, the person on the other end has to have understanding like no other, And my wife has been exceptionally good about that. And I don't give her a reason to do it otherwise.
Sure.
She's not going to have to worry about picking up some newspaper and seeing a picture of me all bowed up with some other girl. It's not going to happen. So, it does. It takes a lot of work to maintain a relationship for this long. It's not all bed of roses.
Sure. Yeah, you got to work. I always say it's like a business, man. If you stop working your business, it stops working. You stop working your relationship, it stops working.
Stops working, man, and it's give and take, and you got to have a lot of tolerance for each other.
Sure.
So, we manage.
Yeah, well, congratulations, man. That's a nice accomplishment. Hey, listen, how can people find you online? How can they find your store? Tell us about your store. Where can they find you? How can they send you money and all that good stuff?
Send money. Yeah, man. Music City Asheville is the name of the store. We're located in West Asheville at the 1400 block of Patton Avenue. And you can go to our website at musiccityasheville.com. And there'll be contact information if you needed to contact us about anything. Also, artimispyleband.com is the site you can go to keep up with what our band is doing. And there's also a way on there to email the band as well. So, yeah, man, if you're in the Asheville area, please stop by and check out the store. Hopefully we'll have something you like.
Awesome.
If not, we'll just sit around and talk about guitars. How's that?
Awesome, man. Well, you're a hell of a nice guy. I really appreciate your time and your tons of sincerity. Everybody, check out Jerry Lyda online, Music City Asheville. If you're in Asheville, go to his store. He's a super nice guy. He's a very knowledgeable guy about guitars and music. Or check him out on tour at the ArtimusPyleBand.com. And I think I'm going to see you guys. We'll get to meet in person because you're coming down to Clearwater at the end of the year, man. So I'm going to come.
Yeah, I think we're in Tampa on December 15th and the 16th in Orlando with the Outlaws. That's going to be a fantastic program there. So, yeah, man, if you guys are in the area, please come out and see us. We'd love to have everybody out. And I don't care if you meet me or not. If you do, I appreciate it. And if you don't, that's all right, too. But you got to meet Artimus. He is a unique man. So, please come out and see us if you can.
All righty, Jerry. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Jerry Lyda as much as I did. Again, thanks, Jerry, for your candor and for your sincerity. And go to everyonelovesguitar.com and sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some cool stuff for guitar players. Now, be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. That's what it's all about, man. Till next time, I'm out. Peace, y'all. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.